What's up, everybody? It's Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. Today's my mom's birthday. Yesterday was 10 years since the passing of my stepson, whom I never met. He lived in Phoenix, and I didn't have a chance to meet the young man. Anyway, today is the first day since I got my truck back. I have a 2012 Chevy Silverado 1500. I bought it already lifted, and I've got 35 by 17s on it. Now, my transmission was messing with me 2 weeks prior to the day it took a dump. And I guess, it didn't seem bad enough to me to check it out. I guess I, in hindsight, made a mistake. But what was happening was I was just cruising along like I am now. I'm doing 40. And say I approached a hill and I had to accelerate up the hill, and it would shift. I guess it would have to downshift. And possibly even if I was going on a flat surface and would upshift in the automatic. I was getting a little bit of, let's just call it feathering. It was kind of going, I would look at the speedometer and it would, the RPMs, and it would just kind of flicker, and I could hear it, and I could feel it. But once you passed a certain point, maybe in RPMs, it would smooth out, and then it would drive fine. So it would only be when the transmission would shift gears, and it wasn't all the gears. And like I said, I should have checked it out earlier. I thought I got bad gas because I was pretty low on fuel previous to this. I filled up. I just thought I got some bad gas. But it continued after I got gas somewhere else a week later. Anyway, so a couple Saturdays ago, I ran to get a haircut, which was maybe 15 miles away. And on the way home, it really started to slip. And so I made a beeline to Advance Auto, and the check engine light came on. So I asked them to read the code. It was a PO 700 and PO 796. 700 I think might be a generic, there's a transmission issue. 796 was specifically transmission, pressure, sensor, solenoid, I believe. And they didn't have any parts to help me out, and I didn't even know what the hell that meant. So I limped down to the dealer, which was maybe a mile away, 2 miles. And now at this point, it's slipping bad. And it got to the point where, after leaving Advanced Auto, it was uphill for maybe a half a mile and downhill the rest of the way. Once I got into the parking lot and had to slow down to maneuver through the lot, it would just rev up. It wouldn't go anywhere. So I'd have to put it in park, shut it off, wait a couple seconds, start it up, put it in drive, then I could go for maybe 50 feet. So I parked it and went in, told them what the codes were in the service department, and they said, you need a new transmission. I said, okay. What might that run me? $4,000 to $6,000, depending. Well, that sucks. I paid $19,000 for this truck 2.5 years ago. I just paid it off a couple months ago. I put a little over, almost $14,000 down on it just to pay it off. And now this. So I figured, okay, well, let me think about this. So I limped it home, and what I had to do was the same thing I had to do there at the end to get it in the parking lot. I could drive a little bit, and then it just wasn't catching anymore. It would just, engine would rev. So I would coast, stop, put it in park, shut it off, wait 5 seconds, start it up, put it in drive. It would let me drive about 50 yards, and then it would not catch anymore. I had to do that probably 10 times before I got home. So I called my local garage, Jimmy, at the Bainbridge 76. He's been there a long time. First I told him what the code was and what the dealership said. And he said, we've replaced them before. I guess the solenoids. You got to get inside the transmission underneath there where all the solenoids are. There's several of them that are in there. And I said, okay, well, look, let me explain to you what I've been going through. So I told him from beginning to end. He goes, yeah, you need a new transmission. You burn it up. The tranny fluid was even a dark gray. It wasn't even red anymore. So I have no idea the last time the transmission fluid was changed in this thing. Previous to this truck, I had a 93 Jeep Cherokee that through all the forums, the Jeep forums that I had been a member of, the majority opinion was don't mess with the transmission in a 93 Jeep Cherokee in those years. I don't know. You can mess something up just by putting new fluid in, can mess it up, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't mess with it. And previous to that, I really didn't do anything with vehicles other than drive them. You know, I changed the oil. In my early years, I'd go to, an oil shop, pay $25, and have them change the oil, whatever it was. But for the last 10, 11 years, I've been doing my own oil changes. And with the Jeep, I did a lot of mechanical work to that. But it got to the point it was nickel and diming me. I was always doing something to that thing. So then I bought this truck in Pennsylvania, Lancaster County. Apparently the used dealer had just recently got it from somebody at that time, and neither one of us knew it until I decided to purchase the vehicle. Well, he needed to get a hold of the title because he hadn't gotten it yet. Well, the truck came from Delaware. Okay. Already lifted. I mean, truck looks really nice. Had 137,000 miles on it for 2012, and this was 2.5 years ago, so we're talking, I think it was February of 2022. You do the math. 168,000 miles on it. So around 168,000 miles, these transmissions tend to break down. It's the 6L80E 6-speed transmission. So went down to the garage down here, talked to Jimmy. He said he could get me a remanufactured for installed for $6,100. Holy shit! That's just about a third of what I paid for the truck, and there's no way around it unless you want to take it to a transmission shop that will take yours out, rebuild it, put it back in. Somebody told me they paid $2,000 to $3,000 for all that. I don't buy it in 2024. But this new transmission is from Jasper Transmissions. Engines and Transmissions. Jasper Engines and Transmissions. From Jasper, Indiana. So I did a lot of YouTubing, Google searching. Saw a lot of negative comments about them. I'm not quite sure why. Jimmy says that's all he uses is Jasper. Now, with this remanufactured transmission, you get a 3-year, 100,000 mile warranty, and that covers labor. That's a good deal. Now, I'm not going to drive 100,000 miles in 3 years. So, if anything goes wrong, it better happen within the first 3 years. So, he took my old one out, installed the new one. It appears he may have cut the exhaust pipe that goes across the bottom of the truck underneath the transmission to get the old one out and the new one in, because there's definitely weld marks on the pipe on either side of the transmission. So if he did it, he neglected to tell me, which kind of sucks. Maybe he didn't. Maybe that was done before. I'm not quite sure. At any rate, he said it took, and once you put this in, you have to have a guy come in that programs your computer to work with this new transmission. And it takes 3 hours. Well, they were having problems because already in the computer was an unlicensed program. They couldn't figure out what it was, but it was causing issues with what they wanted to do. And Jimmy said it took longer to figure out this issue than it did to put the new transmission in. Well, it turns out it was my I believe it's called an AFM disabler. It's a plug-in you plug in under your dash that if you have a motor like me that switches from V8 to V4 when you're going down the road to save you gas, this disabler keeps it in V8. And a lot of people use this because I'm calling it an AFM, I think it's what it is, has a tendency to cause issues long term with the 4 cylinders that are shutting off and coming back online. Something about also possibly the 4 cylinders that are running aren't getting oil. I was going to tell you I had that plugged in there, but I didn't think about it. And it would have been nice had I thought about it. It wouldn't have taken so long to figure it out. So, needless to say, I picked it up this morning. Total bill $6,263.13. It's $4,400 for the transmission. 9 quarts of transmission fluid, which runs about, well, he charged me $22 a quart. And then 11 and a half hours of labor at $80 an hour. So, luckily he's a personable guy, so I picked his brain for half an hour. Okay. Now that my attention has been brought to the transmission, how often do I service it? You know, how often do I change the fluid and filter? Every 30,000 miles. And I'll only need 5 quarts of transmission fluid when I do that, because the other 4 quarts are being held elsewhere in the system. Now, it also came up when he took it for a test drive after installing that the speedometer reading didn't match Google Maps. So, and I knew this already, if you're doing 50 miles an hour down the road, the speedometer is saying 50, but Google Maps says I'm doing 55, around there. He said there was a 2 mile an hour difference for him. So that's an issue. What that does, is that tells the transmission to shift sooner than it should. Which he said is probably what wore out the transmission. I said, you know, you hear about lifted trucks and big tires and all that shit. You never hear about what all that affects, because bigger tires mean you have to travel further to get a complete rotation of the tire. Meaning if the speedometer and odometer are getting their readings by how many times the axle turns, if it takes longer for the axle to turn than it normally would because you have a big tire, then you're probably not showing as many miles in the odometer as you should if there were stock tires on there. Plus, it affects the transmission, and the transmission doesn't shift correctly. So now what I have to do and he called the guy on the phone while I was there, is recalibrate or reprogram the speedometer so that if I'm doing 50 miles an hour, my speedometer is going to tell me I'm doing 50 miles an hour, and it'll be the correct speed, and the odometer will be correct. Not that I want to add miles, and not that I was trying to cheat the next person who might own this, if anybody. Now, of course, the question I posed before I cut him the check was, is this truck worth it? It's got 168,000 miles on it. Is it worth putting another $6,000 into it? I said, I heard you can get 300,000 miles out of these V8 5.3s Vortex. And he said he's seen some with over 500,000. So I said, okay, let's do it. Now, he suggested, and the guy from the place that programs the speedometer suggested that, well, the programmer highly suggested getting it programmed so that the transmission shifts properly with big tires. Jimmy, the garage guy, suggested until that time I either drive it in tow mode so as not to overwork the transmission, or put it in manual out of automatic and switch the gears myself. Well, I tried both, and I haven't really decided which one I'm going to do. Doing it in manual, you have to make sure you don't hit down when you mean to hit up. I tried it for maybe 5-10 miles, and at one point I hit down by mistake, and next thing you know, I'm down a gear, and RPMs go pretty high. So then I put it in tow mode. Well, that seemed a little strange because it's taking a long time to shift gears, and I feel like I'm driving at a high RPM, which doesn't seem to make much sense. So I ran some errands after picking it up, took Mom to breakfast, and then stopped for a couple groceries, and I just put it in drive for now because that's where it was, before. So I'm going to call this place tomorrow, make an appointment. Supposedly this is going to cost $450, but if it extends the life of the transmission, then I have to do it. Also, the warranty from Jasper says I have to put stock tires on in order for the warranty to be good. That'll look kind of funny. Plus, I don't have the money for that. But Jimmy, the garage guy, also said if I get the speedometer programmed, then Jasper said that's good enough. Or it could be good enough for Jimmy. So we'll do that. I'll let you know how things work out. Transmissions are really crazy parts to the vehicle. If you ever get a minute, just YouTube disassembly and assembly of it. There was a video I watched a couple years ago. I was just flabbergasted how many pieces are in this thing. It's like an alien made the shit. The engineering is just phenomenal. But thanks for listening. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them. If you've been here before, let me know. All right? Take care.